Why you nervous?
I'm always nervous in the camera.
Ready, shot in 3, 2, 1, go.
I had a little off, yeah. I had to cut a bill off, yeah. But if we been real though, yeah. Now I don't never feel nothing. Outside of jumping the gun, yeah, like I do it for fun. You act like you do it for real, but no, you not on the vibe, so you never can come. Inside of this building we run, inside of this world we run. We do it for us. No, I don't fuck with one of them at all, we don't fuck you at all. No, I won't pick up the calls.
What's going on? It's your boy Jason with Not Included Car Club. Today, I'm going to be showing you guys how to install injectors on Elantra N. I know this is a pretty popular upgrade on this platform, and I haven't seen too much information on how to go about this yet. So I figured I tried to make a comprehensive guide on how you're going to go about upgrading your injectors on this car. Alrighty, so I've went ahead and started tearing into this a little bit and getting a better feel for what exactly we're going to be doing to gain access to the injectors. So if you don't know, the injectors are under the intake manifold. There's a rail that's attached to this line right here, and you can see it right here, and it goes under the manifold, and that's what holds the injectors. So basically what we're doing is we're just getting everything out of the way and everything off of this manifold so we can actually gain access to the injectors. So the first thing you want to do, if you've never done anything fuel related on these cars, anytime you're messing with the direct injection, you want to go ahead and pull this fuse right here. It's the fuel pump fuse, 20 amp right here, fuel pump fuse, and it'll be located right here in the fuse box. That's where that fuse would go. So anytime you do anything fuel related, especially direct injection, you want to go ahead and take that fuse out and just crank the car up and start it and let it run until it dies, and try and start it a couple more times. That's really just to get all of the fuel out of the fuel rails and the fuel pump itself, so that way when you crack the lines open, it doesn't go everywhere and catches your car on fire. So that's pretty important. You definitely want to make sure that the fuel is totally drained out of the fuel system before you start cracking lines open, especially if you just drove your car, because your turbo's right here. That's going to be super hot. So if you crack one of these lines open and it sprays fuel on the turbo, I mean, that's just a recipe for a fire. So definitely make sure you pull the 20 amp fuse, crank the car until it dies, crank it a couple more times till you're sure there's no more fuel in there. Then you're going to take this line right here, coming off the high pressure fuel pump, this line going to the fuel rail itself. Just crack that open very slowly, and even if you need to put a towel around it like I did, you can take a towel like this, right, and crack the line open. And then after you crack the line open, just slowly work this nut off while you're covering it, just to make sure that fuel doesn't spray anywhere dangerous. So once you got that line cracked, I went ahead and got the intake out of the way. If you have a stock intake, you're just gonna have to figure out how to take that intake off. But aftermarket intake, super simple to take off. Just get that out of the way. That's just gonna help you get more access to the charge pipe and the connectors right here. So you got the intake out of the way. We're gonna take the charge pipe out of the way. So this right here is the charge pipe. So it goes 2 bolts right here onto the bottom of the intercooler. Can you see that? Make sure you don't lose that gasket, or you could take this clamp off. It's really just preference. To take that clamp off, I took the one up here off, so I'll show y'all how to take that off. It's got a little cap covering the bolt head. So you're just gonna take like a flathead or something and just pry right in here, right in there. And the cap should just come up. And then you'll have, it's gonna be an 8mm bolt head, or you can just use a flathead. Just loosen that. Once you get the band clamp loosened, wiggle on this a little bit, it should come off of there. And then what I did is I pulled it off of the throttle body end first, unbolted right here, took all these connectors and stuff off, right? And then just moved this coolant hose out of the way and just pulled it out like this. So now we got that out of the way, right? Now we're on to the intake manifold. So the intake manifold, it's got a bunch of like connectors and stuff. If you're not familiar with this, you might want to label everything before you disconnect it. But basically, you have 3 bulkheads that connect over the bottom of the manifold right here. Do you see that, Ash?
Which one?
These 3
Oh, yeah.
connectors right there.
Yep.
So those just connect onto those. So you'll just unplug those 3 connectors. You have, look. So that's how you open that one. This is how you open this one. And then on this one right here, you're gonna have to get a flathead in between there and just pry while pulling on it. Just be careful, because if you break that ear, it's not gonna clip back in. So you get those unclipped. And then you have this connector going to the throttle body, which plugs into this side. Do you see this?
Yeah.
It plugs into this side of that connector. So this connector, so you'll have this connector going across this way, plugging into the back side of the throttle body. And that's why I said to take the charge pipe out of the way, because that'll help you get to this connector easier. Just unplug it, unplug all of those, and then I'll show you guys the easiest way to take these off. So the harness is just secured with a bunch of these little harness clips in these various locations. What I did is I just started to pull on the harness and then kind of felt where it was giving me resistance, and then found where it was all clipped in and unclipped those. So I'll just show y'all how to undo one of these. So it's clipped in like this. You're just going to either get a pair of pliers and squeeze those ears and pull up on it, or you could even get a pick and just press on each of these ears. And pull up on it. I mean, really just anything to get to these ears right here to pull up on that connector. But I prefer to just grab these pliers and squeeze on it and then pull it out. So you've got one right here, one right here, one right here, one right here. There's one right here. And then there's 2 bolts holding this bracket that holds the bulkhead onto the bottom of the manifold.
Feds feast on street dawns, look at they teeth showing, salivating at the mouth, south to east orange. Keep pouring that liquor, but nigga don't sleep on it. You'll be giving up your Jesus piece of your peeps to pawn it for legal fees in the penal dormant. Screaming on the horn with about 30 years on your conscience. I'm watching brothers disappear, it's appalling. Some dudes had just
so I have the manifold unbolted and it's pretty much ready to come off of the car. So I just want to show y'all what you do. So I mean, honestly, this manifold is super easy to take off. So like I said, you just get all the connectors out the way, get this vacuum line off of there, undo all of the clips holding the harness on there. And then when you go to actually unbolt the manifold, you have 2, excuse me guys, 2 right here in the top middle. And then you're gonna have 2 on the outside, 1 on each outside. You see that? Bottom. And then 1 going straight through the middle. You see that? And then the ones that were the hardest to get to. So remember I was showing you earlier, y'all have a bracket. So this bracket, where is it? This bracket right here, bolts on right here. And that holds the bulkheads. So once you get that out of the way, there's another bracket that holds the bottom of the manifold on. This holds the bottom of the manifold on. And that one it was all the same type of bolts. It was 12 millimeters. So for the studs up top that hold it, you have these nuts. For the 3 bolts On the bottom part of the ports, it's these bolts. And then for the ones at the very bottom, held on by that bracket, it's these ones. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts, 2 nuts holding the manifold on. Once you get those off, it should just slide straight off of those studs right there. You see those? It should slide straight off of those studs. And then you're gonna have 1 vacuum line on the back. So don't just fucking tug on it as soon as you get it off of there. You got 1 vacuum line on the back. Just lay it up on the radiator shroud. Just get that off of there. Get the spring-loaded clip off of there. Wiggle the vacuum line, and it should just pop off of there. And boom, we have our intake manifold.
Wiggy, 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 wiggy. Hold up, wiggy, 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 wiggy. Wiggy, 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 wiggy. Hold up, wiggy, wiggy, wiggy. Stand up in the motor, bust the dashboard. Stand up in the motor, bust the dashboard. Hold up, wiggy, 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 wiggy. Counters burning, money burning, graveyard, these niggas. Found them parking, big dog barking, hey. Blood tails on me, whoa, whoa, whoa. Shawty want that wave, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm tripping,
Alright, so this is what we're after. This is the fuel rail and your direct injection injectors. So in the last clip, we took the manifold off. So after that, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You have your fuel injectors sitting right in here like that, right? And then these are the injector clips. These clip into the injectors themselves. And this is the fuel rail pressure sensor connector. It does have that on there. So there's 4 bolts holding it on. They're 12mm bolts. They just go right through here like this. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 12mm bolts. Then you have the fuel line goes on right here. I just used the crescent wrench to crack that open. Crack it open, put a paper towel around it when you crack it open, so if there's any excess fuel left, you're not spraying it everywhere. And then what I did was I pulled, once I unbolted the rail and undid the line, I had everything clipped on still and connected still. And I just grabbed the rail right in the middle and pushed against this and pulled it out just enough to rotate it like this. And then that gave me the access that I needed to unclip these, right? So the injector connectors, they have this yellow clip. You just slide that up and then you press on this tab and pull back. So let me actually clip one of them in so I can show you guys. So when you slide this off, all 4 of them are gonna be like this. It has a clip in the middle. You should just be able to do it with your finger. If not, just get something like a trim tool or flathead in there and then pop the tab up and then just pull the connector. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 injector connectors, right? Once I undid those, I just grabbed a pair of pliers and went like this to undo those. And then we just had this connector on the fuel rail pressure sensor. So this was a little bit tricky because they have it zip tied with the harness covering the connector tab. So what I did was I kind of just went in here and gave me a little bit of room, and then I pressed on it with a flathead and pushed it out. And once I got that out, you'll just be able to cut the zip tie pretty easily. So you got all of that out of the way. Now we've got the fuel rail off. We're gonna take this to our workbench and swap the new injectors on here. Alright, so I have the fuel rail out. I have all of the old injectors. So once you take the fuel rail out and get it on your workbench, you should just be able to pull on these and wiggle them a little bit. Just be mindful of this tab. This is like a locating tab. It goes into the dimple of the fuel rail right here. So just be mindful of that when you're wiggling it so you don't break that tab. But you can wiggle it while pulling it up. And those should all pop out. You got all 4 of your injectors out. It wouldn't be a bad idea to blow the dust off of this, to blow the dust off of your intake ports and the injector ports. But I went ahead and got one new injector in here just to kind of see how to put these together. So if you buy this injector kit from Whoosh Motorsports or any Shark Racing Authorized Vendor, it will come with all of the one-time use parts. So that's pretty nice. It comes with all the one-time use parts. You don't have to put a parts list together. And it still ended up being cheaper than most other places. So we have the intake manifold gasket. I'll show y'all where that goes in a second. This right here is a throttle body gasket. I didn't take the throttle body off the intake manifold, so I'm just gonna leave that alone. If you didn't take the throttle body off the intake manifold, there's no sense in replacing that gasket. Then you have the injector combustion seals. These just slide onto the new injector like that. So if you look at the old injector, that's what this part right here is. That sits on the injector. That'll be those right there. And then it also comes with new clips. So that's this right here is the clip itself. So when you go to put one of these injectors in your fuel rail, what you're gonna do is take it out of the package, right? Take the top part of it off, so the side closer to the connector. Get your fuel injector clip out of your package. And then you just want to slide this on here the same way it's oriented on the old one, right? So with the ears facing towards the gasket. Alright, so we have the injector clip on there. You don't just want to send this into that hole dry, because it more than likely will tear that gasket. You might get lucky on one or two of them, but I highly doubt you'll get lucky on all of them. So I just have my oil jug over here. That's what I use to fill up cars with oil. I'm just rubbing my finger on it, and I'm just going to take that oil and rub it on this gasket just a little bit. If you get a little bit on it, it's not a big deal, but obviously try to avoid it. So I've got oil on it. Now I'm just going to wiggle it while applying downward force, and it should just pop in there, right? And you're gonna have that ear back in the locating dimple again. So I'm gonna leave the caps on here because I don't want to get any dirt on those. We're just gonna do that with all 4 injectors. I've got all of the injectors with the clips seated in the rail, and I've put 3 of the combustion seals on already. I just saved the last one to show y'all how this goes on there, and it'll be the same process for all 4 of them. So this is your brand new combustion seal. You can see one side is a beveled edge, and then one side has like this metal side exposed. That is the side that's going to seal against the cylinder head. So this beveled edge goes against this side of the injector, and when you actually look at it, you can see there's another little like bevel or chamfer, and that's what holds that seal onto the injector. So we're just going to take it, like I said, beveled edge down, and just try to line it up as best as you can and just press around the edge of it. And then once it's on there, I like to just rotate it just to make sure it's actually on there all the way. So you just do that with all 4 of them. You have your injectors on there with the clips, and once you're at this point, you should be ready to go back in with the fuel rail. One thing I forgot to mention too is that this comes with all the one-time use parts. So it does come with new fuel rail bolts. So the ones that you took off of there, you can go ahead and throw those away, and we'll just go ahead and use these new ones. And like I said, throttle body gasket. If you didn't take the throttle body off the manifold, don't worry about this. And I'm about to show y'all how to get this on there. Alrighty, so as I mentioned earlier, it does come with the new intake manifold gasket. So this is the new one that I've already put on there. But when you take the manifold off, before you put the manifold back on, you do want to replace this gasket. So it's just got a little locating ear right here, and you will just grab it right there, and then you should just be able to peel it up slowly. So once you peel it all the way up, you'll just grab your new one, just kind of line it up. It'll only go up on there one way. Just line it up and just slowly press it in until it's all flush. Alrighty, so we got the new injectors back in the car. Installation is going to be pretty simple. For the most part, it's just going to be the reversal of the removal. When you torque the fuel rail down, the torque on the bolts that hold the fuel rail down is going to be 20 foot-pounds. I do recommend getting a torque bar to torque the fuel rail down, just because it's under the manifold. It's not easily accessible, so you don't really want to play around with that. You just want to make sure the fuel rail is on there tight and how it's supposed to. You don't want any fuel leaks coming from under the manifold, because you won't see that and it'll be hard. So these are the tools you're gonna need. I was able to get most of this done with some pretty basic hand tools. I used some needle nose pliers, some wire snippers just to cut that cable tie on the fuel rail pressure sensor, a 3/8 ratchet, and it doesn't have to be a flex head, a 1/4 inch ratchet, a 10 and 12 millimeter socket, a 6-inch extension, or maybe this is longer than 6 inches, a light with a magnet on it. That's going to be real important because these bolts right here, they're going to be pretty much impossible to get into there without a magnet. So a magnet is very important. Flathead for these worm gear clamps. 19 millimeter for the fuel rail nut that holds the fuel line onto the fuel rail. And then a 12 millimeter. A pry tool, a trim removal tool, and of course the torque bar to torque down the fuel rail and anything else you feel like you need to torque down. That's it. Install was pretty easy, honestly. I figured it was going to be a little bit harder with the amount of stuff that has to come off, but everything is super easy to reach and it doesn't require a whole lot of tools. It's super easy. I feel confident recommending just the average enthusiasts to do this in their in their driveway even. I mean, it is super easy, so yeah.